The Medici family, synonymous with power, art, and influence in Renaissance Italy, held secrets that went far beyond political intrigue and artistic masterpieces. Their cardinals, men draped in scarlet and steeped in sacred duty, were also collectors, but their tastes strayed from conventional beauty. They sought out the bizarre, the unbelievable, the truly strange. From fragments of divine wonder to the literal remains of mythical beasts, these church princes amassed a private treasury of objects that would make your jaw drop. Get ready to dive into the hidden chambers of history where faith met the incredibly weird. Here are 7 of the most peculiar relics gathered by the Medici Cardinals, items that once commanded awe and mystery without any explanation. Number 7. The Holy Blood of Saint Januarius. Cardinal Carlo de' Medici, known for his refined tastes in art and his extensive private collections, possessed an item that captivated onlookers and stirred deep devotion, a phial containing what was believed to be the dried blood of Saint Januarius. This particular relic was not unique to the Medici family, as the most famous vial of Saint Januarius' blood resided in Naples, famously liquefying multiple times a year. However, the Medici Cardinals version, acquired through channels that remain shrouded in historical whispers, held its own special power within the family's private chapels. It was housed in a delicate, ornate reliquary crafted from gilded silver and adorned with tiny, glittering gemstones, a testament to the importance placed upon its contents. The phial itself was small, no larger than a thumb, made of ancient glass, slightly cloudy with age, through which one could just discern a dark, reddish-brown substance clinging to the bottom. Cardinal Carlo, born in 1595, was a figure of immense prestige. As the son of Ferdinando, the first de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany, and Christina of Lorraine, his life was marked by privilege and a deep engagement with the religious practices of his time. He was made a cardinal in 1615 by Pope Paul V, and his career was characterized by a blend of political acumen and a genuine interest in the spiritual. This collection was not just about accumulating beautiful objects, it was also about spiritual power, about holding fragments of the divine, or at least what was believed to be divine. The phial of Saint Januarius' blood was a centerpiece of this spiritual arsenal. The story of Saint Januarius himself was one of martyrdom and miraculous survival. He was a bishop of Benevento, Italy, executed during the Diocletianic persecution in the early 4th century. Legends told of his steadfast faith in the face of brutal torture, and his blood, collected by devoted followers at the site of his execution, became a powerful symbol of sacrifice and divine intervention. The liquefaction phenomenon observed in Naples was seen as a sign of God's favor and a warning of impending misfortune if it failed to occur. The Medici phial, while not undergoing the same public spectacle of liquefaction, was still revered for its direct connection to such a potent holy figure. Within the secluded chapels of the Medici palaces, perhaps in the Palazzo Pitti or the Via di Castello, the reliquary containing the blood was often brought out for private veneration. It was displayed on altars draped in rich brocades, illuminated by flickering candlelight, casting dancing shadows on the walls adorned with intricate frescoes. Members of the Medici household, along with favored guests and religious dignitaries, would gather, kneeling in solemn reverence before the small vial. They would pray for protection, for blessings, for the intercession of the saint in matters of health or political fortune. The cardinal himself would often preside over these intimate ceremonies, his crimson robes a striking contrast to the humble, ancient glass phial. The significance of possessing such a relic extended beyond mere piety. In an age where spiritual power was intertwined with temporal authority, owning a piece of a venerated saint could bolster a family's standing. It suggested divine approval, a special connection to the heavens. For Cardinal Carlo, it was a tangible link to the miracles of the past, a symbol of the enduring power of faith. It was a fragment of the sacred, held within the confines of a private collection, yet radiating an influence that was felt by all who were allowed to witness it. The relic was kept with meticulous care, locked away in secure strongboxes, only to be presented during specific religious observances or on occasions of great personal or family significance, a silent, powerful guardian of the Medici name. The relic's strange power, its very nature as a solidified remnant of life, continued to inspire wonder and solemn reflection long after its initial acquisition. Number 6, a feather from the Archangel Gabriel's wing. Cardinal Leopoldo de' Medici, a man whose intellect was as expansive as his collection, was known for his insatiable curiosity. Unlike some of his predecessors, who might have focused solely on the most visually striking relics, Leopoldo delved into the realms of the truly esoteric, seeking items that blurred the lines between the sacred, the miraculous, and the almost mythological. Among his most astonishing acquisitions was a single iridescent feather, purportedly shed from the wing of the Archangel Gabriel during the Annunciation. This was not merely a feather from a common bird. It was an object said to have touched the divine, a testament to a pivotal moment in Christian history. Leopoldo, born in 1617, was the younger brother of Grand Duke Ferdinando II de' Medici. He was a cardinal who chose not to pursue the papacy, instead dedicating his life to intellectual pursuits and the patronage of arts and sciences. He was a founding member of the Accademia del Cimento, a scientific society that conducted experimental research, and his correspondence with leading minds across Europe showed his deep engagement with the discoveries of his era. Yet, alongside his telescopes and scientific instruments, he harbored a profound interest in relics, viewing them perhaps as a different kind of window into the mysteries of existence. He collected rare manuscripts, ancient coins, and natural wonders, and the Archangel's feather fit perfectly into this tapestry of the unusual. The feather itself was delicate, measuring only a few inches in length. Its color was said to shift with the light, moving from a shimmering pearl white to faint hints of gold and sky blue, as if reflecting the ethereal nature of its supposed origin. It was housed within an incredibly intricate filigree reliquary made of pure gold, shaped like a miniature angelic wing, studded with tiny uncut diamonds that caught the light, making the feather seem to glow from within. The craftsmanship of the reliquary itself was a marvel, speaking to the immense value and reverence placed upon its contents. This was not an item that was simply placed on a shelf. It was an object of profound contemplation. The story of the Annunciation, when the Archangel Gabriel appeared to the Virgin Mary to announce she would bear the Son of God, is central to Christian belief. The idea that a physical trace of this divine encounter could exist on earth was, for many, a source of immense spiritual awe. While relics of saints were common, a relic from an archangel was exceedingly rare, pushing the boundaries of what was conceivable. It implied a tangible connection to the celestial realm, a direct link to a moment of divine communication with humanity. The feather, therefore, became a powerful symbol of divine presence and intervention in the earthly sphere. Cardinal Leopoldo would often present this feather to small, select gatherings in his private study, a room filled with globes, scientific instruments, and shelves overflowing with books. He would speak quietly of its supposed journey, of the miraculous nature of its preservation, and of the profound significance of the Annunciation. Visitors, often scholars, fellow collectors, or high-ranking church officials, would lean in, their faces alight with a mixture of skepticism and wonder. They would observe the feather, perhaps seeing in its subtle shimmer a reflection of heavenly light. For some, it was a tangible anchor for their faith, a physical manifestation of a divine touch. For others, particularly those who shared Leopoldo's scientific leanings, it was a fascinating enigma, a cultural artifact that spoke volumes about the beliefs of the age. The feather, unlike the bones or blood of saints, offered a different kind of strangeness, a delicate whisper of the supernatural, caught and preserved for centuries in the collection of a curious cardinal. Number 5. The Tooth of Saint Christopher. Cardinal Giovanni de' Medici, who would later become Pope Leo X, lived in a period of intense intellectual ferment and religious fervor. As a scion of the powerful Medici family, he was immersed in a world where art, politics, and faith intertwined in complex ways. His personal collection of relics, while perhaps not as sprawling as those of some later cardinals, was significant, and among its most intriguing pieces was a relic purported to be a tooth of Saint Christopher. This was a saint whose very existence was debated even in his own time, and his legend was one of immense strength and miraculous deeds, making any fragment of his supposed remains an item of intense fascination. Born in 1475, Giovanni de' Medici was destined for the highest echelons of the church. He received a rigorous humanist education surrounded by the greatest minds of the Renaissance. He was made a cardinal at the tender age of 13, a testament to his family's influence. His elevation to the papacy in 1513 marked a high point for the Medici family's power. Throughout his life, Giovanni cultivated a reputation as a sophisticated patron of the arts, a lover of classical antiquity, and a deeply religious man. His collection of relics therefore served both as a demonstration of his piety and as an intriguing component of his broader cultural interests. The relic itself was described as a large, fossilized molar, uncommonly big for a human tooth. Its surface was worn smooth in places, and it bore the yellowish-brown hue of ancient bone. It was encased in a heavy gilded silver reliquary shaped somewhat like a stylized tooth, adorned with engravings depicting scenes from Saint Christopher's legendary life. The reliquary was robust, signaling the importance and perhaps the robustness attributed to the saint himself. Its size alone made it stand out among the smaller, more common bone fragments often found in reliquaries. The legend of Saint Christopher was widely known. He was a giant of a man, so the story goes, who dedicated his life to carrying travelers across a dangerous river. One day, a small child asked to be carried, and as Christopher bore him across, the child grew heavier and heavier until Christopher could barely move. When they reached the other side, the child revealed himself to be Christ, and the weight Christopher carried was the weight of the world. But Christopher, whose name means Christ-bearer, thus became the patron saint of travelers. The enormous size of the tooth was presented as proof of the giant's legendary stature, further solidifying the relic's authenticity in the eyes of believers. Cardinal Giovanni, even before he became Pope Leo X, would keep this tooth in his private chapel, a space often adorned with exquisite paintings and sculptures from the leading artists of his time. It would be displayed on special occasions, perhaps during a mass for safe travels for an envoy, or simply for the private contemplation of the cardinal and his most trusted advisors. The tooth was regarded not just as a piece of a saint, but as a direct connection to a figure of immense strength and divine purpose. People would touch the reliquary, murmuring prayers for protection on journeys both physical and spiritual. The very idea of holding a piece of a man who had literally carried Christ across a river was profoundly moving for many, bridging the gap between an ancient legend and a tangible present. The tooth represented a kind of primal power, a link to a time when heroes walked the earth and miracles were an everyday expectation, making it one of the stranger, yet undeniably captivating, pieces in the cardinal's possession. Number 4. A strand of the Virgin Mary's hair. And Cardinal Alessandro de' Medici, who held a brief but significant period as Pope Leo XI, inherited a collection steeped in devotional history, and among its most tender and ethereal items was a single long strand of hair alleged to have belonged to the Virgin Mary. Unlike the hardened bones of saints or the petrified fragments of miracles, this relic offered an intensely personal and intimate connection to the Mother of Christ. Its very fragility and mundane nature made it profoundly strange, yet endlessly fascinating, a tangible link to a figure held in such universal reverence. Alessandro de' Medici, born in 1535, was a grandson of Lorenzo the Magnificent, connecting him directly to the most illustrious branch of the family. He rose steadily through the ecclesiastical ranks, becoming Archbishop of Florence and then a cardinal. His life was marked by a deep commitment to religious reform and a reputation for piety and humility, a stark contrast to some of his more flamboyant Medici relatives. When he finally ascended to the papacy in 1605, it was seen as a triumph of virtue. His collection of relics reflected this piety, focusing on items that inspired contemplation and devotion, and the Virgin Mary's hair was paramount among them. The strand of hair was described as remarkably fine, a shimmering golden brown, a color often associated with depictions of Mary in Renaissance art. It was presented not in a heavy, ornate reliquary, but in a delicate, almost jewel-like case crafted from crystal and polished silver. This transparent enclosure allowed for an unobstructed view of the single, slender thread, highlighting its preciousness and fragility. Sometimes the reliquary was shaped like a teardrop or a small heart, emphasizing the tenderness and sorrow associated with the Mother of God. The simplicity of its presentation compared to the grandeur of other relics made it all the more striking. The significance of such a relic lay in its direct, personal link to Mary. While relics of Christ's Passion were numerous and fragments of Mary's clothing or veil were known, a piece of her actual body was incredibly rare and profoundly intimate. It suggested a closeness, a tangible presence of the Divine Mother. For believers, holding or even just gazing upon this hair was like reaching across centuries and touching the sacred humanity of the Virgin. It offered a connection to the gentle, compassionate side of the divine, a contrast to the power and judgment often associated with God the Father or Christ as King. Cardinal Alessandro would often contemplate this relic in his private moments of prayer. It was said that he would keep it in his personal breviary, a small, illuminated prayer book, or on a simple wooden stand beside his bed, a constant reminder of piety and grace. During special vigils or private masses dedicated to the Virgin, the reliquary would be brought forth, its delicate contents drawing the quiet reverence of those present. Women, in particular, would often feel a profound connection to this relic, seeing in it a symbol of purity, motherhood, and suffering. It represented a unique form of spiritual intimacy, a subtle yet powerful object that spoke not of grand miracles or heroic martyrdoms, but of the quiet, human presence of the sacred. The strange nature of collecting a single strand of hair, so vulnerable and personal, speaks volumes about the depth of devotion and the lengths to which collectors would go to hold a piece of the sacred within their grasp. Number 3, a piece of the manger from Bethlehem. Cardinal Ferdinando I de' Medici, a man whose life was a journey from the crimson robes of a cardinal to the ducal mantle of Tuscany, maintained an astonishing collection that reflected both his deep faith and his immense worldly power. Among his most cherished and historically evocative possessions was a fragment of wood, believed to be a piece of the very manger in which the infant Jesus was laid in Bethlehem. This relic was not about a saint's body or a miraculous fluid. It was a direct, tangible link to the humble beginnings of Christianity, a piece of the original Christmas story preserved through centuries. Born in 1549, Ferdinando I began his career in the church, becoming a cardinal at the age of 14. He showed considerable diplomatic skill and administrative talent, representing Medici interests in Rome. However, when his elder brother, Francesco I, died without a male heir, Ferdinando renounced his cardinalate in 1587 to assume the title of Grand Duke of Tuscany. Despite this shift to secular rule, his spiritual devotion remained profound, and his interest in sacred relics never waned. He understood the power of such objects, not just for personal piety, but for affirming the prestige and divine favor of his family. The relic itself was a small, unassuming piece of aged, splintered wood, perhaps a few inches in length. Its color was dark, almost black with age, its texture rough and unrefined. It was encased in a reliquary that combined both simplicity and grandeur, a rectangular box of highly polished ebony with a clear crystal lid, allowing a full view of the ancient timber. The crystal was set into a frame of intricately worked gold, perhaps with a small, inscribed cross or other Christian symbols. The design allowed the humble nature of the wood to speak for itself, yet presented it in a manner befitting its immense spiritual significance. The story of the Nativity, the birth of Jesus in a stable in Bethlehem, is the cornerstone of Christian belief. The idea that a piece of the very manger could exist, a humble wooden trough that cradled the Son of God, was profoundly moving. It offered a palpable connection to the historical Christ, not as an abstract theological concept, but as an infant born in humility. Such a relic would have been viewed as a direct link to the central mystery of the Incarnation, the moment when God became man. It was a testament to the miraculous beginnings of faith found not in palaces, but in the humblest of settings. As cardinal, Ferdinando would have held this relic in utmost reverence, perhaps keeping it in his private study or in the most sacred part of his chapel. When he became Grand Duke, the relic likely found a place of honor within the ducal residence, possibly in the Palazzo Pitti's private chapel, or even within the famed Uffizi, which he began to transform into a museum. It would be displayed on Christmas Eve or during special Advent services, serving as a powerful visual aid for meditation on the humility and wonder of Christ's birth. The wood, dark and unadorned, became a profound symbol, inspiring reflection on the divine made manifest in simplicity. It was a strange relic not for its grotesque nature, but for its sheer understated power, a simple piece of wood bearing the weight of immense historical and theological meaning, collected and cherished by a man who bridged the worlds of spiritual devotion and temporal might. Number 2, a vial of Saint Catherine of Siena's blood. Cardinal Giovanni de Medici, renowned for his opulent lifestyle and his patronage of the arts and theater, also maintained a significant collection of sacred relics. Among these, one of the most striking and intensely devotional was a vial believed to contain the dried blood of Saint Catherine of Siena. This relic was not merely a historical curiosity, it was a palpable connection to one of the most dynamic and influential women in medieval church history, a mystic, a reformer, and a figure whose life was marked by extreme devotion and extraordinary spiritual experiences. Born in 1611, Giovancarlo was the son of Grand Duke Cosimo II de' Medici. He was made a cardinal in 1644. Unlike some of his more politically active cardinal relatives, Giovancarlo embraced a life of luxury and culture, known for his lavish entertainments and his passion for collecting fine art, jewels, and antique artifacts. However, beneath the surface of his worldly pursuits lay a thread of genuine religious belief, and his acquisition of relics, particularly one so profoundly spiritual as Saint Catherine's blood, underscored this aspect of his complex character. His collection of relics served as a powerful personal statement of faith and a testament to the veneration of saints. The relic was a small glass phial, perhaps 2 inches in height, sealed with a stopper of wax, and contained within an elaborate reliquary. The blood within was a dark, congealed substance, appearing almost black in the dim light, with a faint, reddish-brown sheen when held to the sun. The reliquary itself was a work of art, a testament to Medici patronage. It was crafted from gilded bronze, intricately sculpted with scenes from St. Catherine's life, perhaps her receiving the stigmata, or her journey to Avignon to persuade the Pope. Precious stones, likely rubies or garnets, were sometimes embedded in the metalwork, emphasizing the sanctity of the contents. The reliquary had a small opening, allowing for a glimpse of the precious substance inside, protected by a piece of rock crystal. And St. Catherine of Siena lived in the 14th century and was an extraordinary figure. She was a Dominican tertiary, a mystic who experienced visions, and is said to have received the stigmata. She was a powerful advocate for peace and for the return of the papacy from Avignon to Rome, corresponding with popes and kings. Her life was characterized by extreme asceticism, profound theological insight, and an unshakable devotion to Christ. Her blood, therefore, was not merely a physical remnant. It was seen as a symbol of her passion, her sacrifice, and her direct communion with the divine. The relics of her body, especially her blood, were highly prized, believed to transmit her intense spiritual energy. Cardinal Giovancarlo would display this relic in his private oratory, a richly decorated space within his residence, often adorned with paintings by artists like Pietro da Cortona or Mattia Preti. It was often placed on an altar during special masses, particularly on St. Catherine's feast day, surrounded by fresh flowers and burning incense. Devotees, often women seeking spiritual guidance or intercession, would come to gaze upon the feel, offering prayers for strength, spiritual fervor, and purity. The relic was said to inspire profound introspection and a renewal of faith. Its very presence was a reminder of a life lived in radical devotion, a life that pushed the boundaries of human experience in pursuit of the divine. The strange, almost primal power of dried blood from a woman of such fervent faith continued to exert a powerful, almost magnetic pull on those who were permitted to witness it, a testament to the enduring veneration of spiritual intensity. Number 1. The Unicorn Horn. Cardinal Ippolito de' Medici, a figure known for his flamboyance, his military aspirations, and his dramatic life, possessed an item that was less about piety and more about prestige, mystery, and perhaps a touch of the legendary unicorn horn. In the Renaissance, unicorn horns, or alicorns, were among the most coveted and enigmatic items. They were believed to possess immense healing properties, to detect poisons, and to be symbols of purity and strength. While modern science has long since identified these horns as narwhal tusks, for Cardinal Ippolito and his contemporaries, they were tangible proof of a creature from myth, a precious and powerful artifact. Ippolito de' Medici, born in 1511, was the illegitimate son of Giuliano de' Medici, Duke of Nemours. His life was a whirlwind of political intrigue and personal ambition. He was made a cardinal at a young age by his cousin Pope Clement VII, but he harbored a secret desire for a more secular life, even leading troops into battle. His personal style was extravagant, and his court was filled with poets, artists, and adventurers. He collected curiosities that reflected his adventurous spirit and his taste for the extraordinary, and a unicorn horn, with its blend of natural wonder and mythical allure, was a perfect fit for his collection. The horn itself was described as a long, spiraled tusk, typically ranging from a few feet to several feet in length. Its color was usually a creamy white, sometimes with darker striations following the spiral. Ippolito's particular specimen was said to be an impressive size, making it a focal point in any room. It was often displayed upright, sometimes mounted on a gilded pedestal or suspended from the ceiling like a magical spear. Its texture was smooth and cool to the touch, and its distinctive spiral made it instantly recognizable. The sheer physical presence of such an object was captivating, a tangible link to a world where magic and reality often intersected. The beliefs surrounding unicorn horns were deeply ingrained in medieval and Renaissance thought. It was widely believed that a unicorn could only be captured by a virgin, symbolizing purity. The horn itself was thought to be a powerful antidote to poisons. Kings and nobles would often have cups made from unicorn horn, or would use it to stir their drinks, believing it would detect or neutralize any toxins. It was also considered a potent medicine for various ailments, from fevers to epilepsy. For Cardinal Ippolito, owning such a horn was not just a display of wealth, but also a declaration of his sophisticated taste and his ability to acquire the rarest and most potent of natural wonders. It was a conversation starter, a symbol of protection, and an item that commanded awe. Cardinal Ippolito would likely have displayed his unicorn horn prominently, perhaps in his personal study, or within a dedicated room of curiosities alongside other rare and exotic items he had acquired from his travels and campaigns. Visitors to his court would have been awestruck by its presence, a stark white spiral rising majestically, reflecting the light. It was touched with reverence, spoken of with hushed tones and wonder. While not a religious relic in the traditional sense, its immense perceived power and mythical origin gave it a quasi-sacred status, a strange object that blurred the lines between natural history, folklore, and the divine. For Ippolito, it was an emblem of his unique position, a man of God who also held a piece of the world's greatest mystery, a true testament to the strange and wonderful collections amassed by the Medici Cardinals.